Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about how scaling Agile can change things for your company or business. My name is Rogerio. I am born and raised in Brazil. I became a software engineer in 1998, almost 30 years. I immigrated to Japan in 2011. And in late 2020, I joined WOVN Technologies. I have some fellow workers here. Thank you for coming. I first joined a company as a front-end engineer. About 6 months later, I transitioned to become a product owner in a Scrum team, within the Scrum team. At the time, the company was basically following Scrum methodology by the book. And then around 2 years or 3 years ago, the company decided to adopt a new framework called LeSS. And at that time, I transitioned back to be a full stack engineer. So for those who are not familiar with Scrum, Scrum is basically an agile framework that helps organizations to develop and deliver products in general. Doesn't need to be specific software products, but it's mostly used for software development. In a nutshell, Scrum is a typical setup for Scrum is you're going to have multiple cross-functional teams. And within these cross-functional teams, they're going to find one product owner, as I was, one Scrum Master, one designer, and one or more engineers. This may or may not include QA engineers as well. And those engineers may be full stack, as I am now, or maybe very specialized ones, for example, front-end developer, back-end, data scientist, whatever. And then Scrum basically shapes the teams across one single product. Every team is generally speaking, is in charge of one product or big feature from a big product. Now you may have asking yourself, what is LeSS? LeSS is essentially a large scale Scrum, and the difference here is the way we look at the product. So for Scrum, as I mentioned, teams are taking care of a product or a feature, a big feature from the product itself. But in LeSS, product may include everything the company, every kind of service and business the company do. For example, customer support, the software itself it produces, the service if the company, as WOVN has, like localization, human localization service. This is also part of our product. And for LeSS, this macro vision becomes a product. Typically, you're going to find in a LeSS setup, you're going to find only one product owner in charge of the whole product, everything you have in the company. This guy is going to be in charge of managing. There is one or more Scrum Masters, and those guys are going to be basically in charge of facilitating all the Scrum events, helping teams to get along and to be more productive. And this product owner, he is going to basically be in charge of managing one huge product backlog. So we don't have anymore one product backlog per team. We have one product backlog for the entire company. Then teams are typically cross-functional, are made of cross-functional individuals. They're not anymore cross-functional teams. And so when I say cross-functional team and cross-functional individuals, the big difference here is when you talk about a cross-functional team, you have a group of people that share the same goal, but they have different specialties. For example, one is front-end engineer, one is back-end engineer, one is data, whatever. And then those guys have one item to work on, and they focus on the goal all together. And this team is capable of, as a group, to do the job end to end. Now, when we talk about cross-functional individuals, as you may already infer, this only individual, this single guy or girl, is capable of doing the job end to end. Well, this person may have its preferences, may have its domain of expertise, but in general, this guy or this girl can just do the work from end to end. Now, when we do Scrum, when we follow Scrum, it works very nicely. It works great, especially if you have one team. It's very smooth to work with Scrum there. If you have 3 teams, it's still worth. It's manageable. You can still control and share knowledge and contribute to each other. But now when you start having more than 3 teams, you have 5 plus teams as we do have at WOVN, you start seeing a coordination explosion. You start seeing a problem in communication. And this is not really great. It doesn't work very well. And that brings me to the symptoms. So when we have big teams or many teams, you start feeling your teams are siloed. Every team is basically working on their own priorities. You have multiple product backlogs, as I mentioned in the beginning. In this illustration, for example, we have team green, team blue. Each one has their own set of items. And remember I mentioned there's a PO inside, a product owner inside this team. So this guy focus is pretty much prioritizing their own items, their own tasks. And that creates, eventually, those teams needs to align, needs to get in sync to basically meet the company mission, to try to align with the company value. And there is when you see the chaos happening. You see endless alignment meetings. You see those guys having meetings after meetings just to try to align with the company goal. And many of times this doesn't work so efficiently. So the real problem we see there, and the real problem we saw at WOVN, is when you have separate backlogs, the priorities are focused in their own silo. And from the company and the business perspective, that is a huge problem because it creates ownership fragmentation. So every product owner is doing their best to prioritize the items they have on their own backlog, but they don't really are aware, or they don't really know much about the others. Even though they try hard to align this with company values, it's really hard. It's really difficult. And because of that, it generates wrong priorities. So one team may focus in activities and tasks that it's not really delivering value to the customers. It's just delivering value to the products they are building. And because they are siloed, this creates a lack of knowledge. And the one team completely lacks knowledge from the work from the other team. So in this illustration example, the team green doesn't really know, or maybe don't care, about what the team blue is doing, or vice versa. And this lack of knowledge in silo, it creates slow response to market change. So market's constantly changing, right? You have a lot of change, you have a lot of new demands from customers, or new customers coming in. And then you see those the teams are slow to deliver the features, the values that these customers need. And then, of course, that leads to inefficient feedback loops. Then, once WOVN adopted LeSS, we saw a huge shift in the operandum modus, the way we work, the mindset. Before, we had 2 different backlogs. Once we merged all those 2 backlogs into a single one backlog and delegate this responsibility for a single PO, single guide to manage these priorities, we saw something like this. We saw priorities from the separate backlogs merging, and eventually they are not even priority anymore. because the value we're delivering to customers or our end users, it's not really aligned to the previous priority we had. So we came from a single product, cross-functional teams, and we went to a whole product, cross-functional teams. We left the product-centric mindset and got the customer-centric mindset. And then all the knowledge that was once siloed now is shared. So every single team in our company, they're not specialists. They don't really specialize on each domain in the product, but they know what's going on there. If there's something to be done, they are very capable to step in there and start doing something valuable. And that creates an impact, of course. And the impact there is really positive. We can now focus really hard in the business value rather than the product feature. We have very few handoffs. So we don't have any more situations where the front-end team didn't deliver and the back-end team is ready to ship. No, we have basically the whole team either delivering or not delivering the full thing together. Every single member from the product team, product division, have a broader skill set now. They know how to work on the front end. They know how to work on the back end, the database, even the infrastructure. And that creates an opportunity for every single member to be exposed to our whole architecture as a business, as a product. Well, the benefit we experienced as LeSS practitioners, we now see every single one involved in the product development aligned around the same goal. And so in that creates opportunity for higher collaboration. So now we easily see around stakeholders, salespeople, business people, customer support, talking directly with engineers and not anymore going through the PO, using PO as a bridge. So now the engineers as well go straight to them, meet them, get the feedback directly from them. And that makes the feedback loop much shorter and makes it easier to output something valuable. We had less specialization comfort now. So there's no more such a thing, oh, I'm front-end developer, I don't touch backend. I'm backend developer. I don't know anything about Vue.js, the technology we use. Every single one, including business people, including product people, they are more knowledgeable about the product itself. They understand more about it. Business people understand more how the product is built, and the engineers now have a bigger picture about how the product is sold. And that also increased the number of discussions we have about architecture itself. And this creates an opportunity for us to go on the reverse direction to Conway's law. So Conway's law, for those not very familiar with the concept, it says a system that's designed by an organization tends to basically mimic the organization communication structure. So you have if you have many friction, many problems between your teams communicating, these problems, these frictions are going to be reflected in how your product is. And because we basically broke those walls, we put them down, we empowered every single member in the company to talk to each other, increasing the communication. We kind of reverse this path. We are able to understand the end user needs, the customer needs. And then because of that, we can design the product to be reflecting their needs, delivering value for them. And I'm gonna be clear. Although LeSS is really simple. It's a really simple framework for those already practicing Scrum. LeSS is just one step forward. But Because it's simple, it's very hard. When you start adopting this, it creates some resistance from the specialists. So those engineers, those people, those contributors that are used to do only their own niche job, they're going to start pushing back. They don't want to go further. Don't want to go outside of their comfort zone. And LeSS, in that sense, it basically forces us, in quotes, to do that, to step out of our comfort zone. And I understand the skill, the resistance comes from the skill, a skill gap, because they are exposed. So once I'm kind of requested to touch the backend, and I'm a front-end engineer, that feels a little bit uncomfortable. And the ownership is also threatened. Imagine you have a team that is used, as my previous team was, we are used to take care of a whole product. And so that was our baby. Every piece of the code was gatekeeper by our engineers. Every single business decision there was made by me and my team. And then eventually, this is given away to another PO, another group of engineers that will take care of the code. And that hurts a little bit. It makes you feel, oh, this guy is touching my code, so I would do this differently. But actually, in fact, this, because of all this learning, all this initial friction, it creates productivity slowness. It slows you down. But eventually, as you practice a little bit, you start seeing good things. The unexpected outcomes here is, as I mentioned, the communication increases quite a lot. So now you see a lot of people talking, a lot of people contributing to each other. And there is much less dependency drama. So you see, there is no more this kind of, we cannot ship this feature now because the front end is not ready. The API is done, but front end guys, this guy is so slow. No, there's nothing like this anymore. Everybody's responsible for the thing from end to end. And because now PO only focus on the backlog, one big backlog that contains every single feature and request from customers, the priorities are much clearer. Everybody starts thinking more about the product, and because of that, we learn much more about everything in the business. And one funny fact here, interesting fact, is eventually you start seeing more proactivity. So people who are not used before to touch code, a designer, for example, this guy never coded anything. And eventually this guy, of course, pairing with a senior engineer, this guy just starts being very proactive in saying, no, I will take care of this, but I can do it. No worries. I will do it. Open a PR. You can just help with that. And so our conclusion, basically, what we learned that LeSS really does for your company, it doesn't really help your company to fix any problem. They just expose the problem you have. And so problems in our case was our teams were very siloed. The organization was very complex, and we had weak architecture. And when I say about weak, when I mention weak architecture, I'm basically trying to mean it was badly structured, and that essentially increased the cognitive load. People to learn about the product, about using the problem, about developing the problem. Skill and balance, of course. Every single engineer was just on their own comfort zone, every business people in their comfort zone. And then now, there was a problem at the time. I just have one more minute. So, to conclude, scaling and Agile is essentially an organization design problem. The process alone can be Scrum, can be anything else. It's not gonna save you from those problems. It's gonna basically make it more visible. And so for that, in order to fix or improve your organization, the structure, it really matters. And the more simple you can do the structure, the more mature you're going to get at the end. I hope that was an interesting topic for you. I'd like to thank you all for making this time with me. And I think enough talk. I will be available for all your questions. Thank you.